recap. As a little summary here, vNext is part of our quality product pillar. I'll explain a little bit about why in a moment. Our main objective right now is to migrate the Moduleap official release so it's based on vNext components with all the goodness in that new code base. We have made some progress over this last PI. Julie will talk to you a bit more about that in some more detail, so I won't steal her thunder. So what is vNext? vNext is a new implementation of our core, some of the components in the Moduleap core. It represents a migration to TypeScript as a programming language from JavaScript. Those of you unfamiliar with TypeScript, it's an extension to JavaScript such that there is now a compile step in front of the build process. With JavaScript, it's a runtime interpreted language. And with TypeScript, there's a compile step that happens, and it actually turns the TypeScript into JavaScript, but it performs some safety checks along the way, type safety. So those of you familiar with programming languages, TypeScript adds type safety to JavaScript, basically. And for those of you unfamiliar, it helps to eliminate a particular class of programming errors and bugs due to the way data is passed around inside a program. This new implementation closely follows the Moduleap reference architecture, which was developed over previous years. Reference architecture was developed after the vNow implementation was designed and built. So it's an evolution of the thought process around not just the technical domain, but the business domain as well. That has some advantages. vNext is a drop-in evolution of our current product. So it will have the same underlying business scope and feature set. So adopters, when we make a release that's based on vNext components, will have exactly the same external APIs and the same feature set as the existing Moduleap version. And it will be fully compliant with the Moduleap specification in the same way the vNow codebase is. Why are we doing this? Well, business requirements do change over time, and since the inception of the Moduleap project 6 or 7 years ago, new requirements have come to light. Our understanding of the market, the business and technical domains have changed and evolved. And as you maintain a large code base over time, the complexity tends to increase. But also during that evolution and growth of a code base, sometimes optimizations become apparent, obvious. Some around performance, for example, you may spot a more efficient way of achieving the same outcome. More efficient algorithms might suddenly become apparent. But also, as I said already, that shared understanding of the business and technical domains tends to evolve over time. And as that happens, it makes sense to rethink the way your software is structured. So in vNext, we're trying to simplify some of the complexity that's appeared over time. This tends to reduce the complexity, the time, effort, but probably most importantly, the risk of making changes to that code base. Those of you who don't have long history of software engineering might not know, but as code bases get big and long-lived, they tend to become more brittle over time. Not always, but business needs and requirements and deadlines, customer asks tend to trump some of the more time-consuming aspects of maintaining code base and good housekeeping and refactoring. So it's just a fact of life in large, complex software products that complexity increases over time. So periodically, it makes sense to do some housekeeping to try and keep that risk profile of making changes and evolving and adding features as low as possible. Simpler code is much easier to understand and reason about. We're trying to do some things here in some important and sensitive financial domains. It's important that that code is correct and always does the right thing, even when situations that the programmers don't anticipate might occur. You need to be confident that your code can do the right thing, and being able to think about what your code will do under various different situations is easier if it's simpler and well structured. The more spaghetti and bird's nest like your code becomes, the harder it is to understand how it will behave under different situations. So alongside that, obviously, technology doesn't stand still. Tools evolve over time. New programming languages, paradigms, patterns and approaches are developed, and it makes sense to try to make use of those to improve our product. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Julie, who will tell you what's been going on in the workstream since the last PI. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you very much, James. Yeah, so we've made like a significant progress with the last PI, as James mentioned earlier in this call. So I guess we can more or less categorize this progress in three big themes. First one is scope identification. So we have now clear visibility on what it takes to declare vNext as a release candidate. And how we've done that actually, so we used the vNext report that was produced and published by the Mojallo Foundation. That was one source of information to basically have a clear list of tasks that needs to be completed so that we'll be in the position to declare vNext as the next release candidate. The second thing that we use is all the release process that Sam presented this morning. So what we want is making sure that actually we consider vNext as a product release, as a next product release, and as such that it is close to all the release principle and the quality of standards that we have applied in this arena. So we used it as well, so that to establish like what is required. And for example, we have a few documentation that need to be improved to make sure that actually we stick to the standard release processes. One thing I'd like to mention when we say that the scope of the work required has been identified, actually this needs to be caveated a bit because we still have some outstanding tasks that need to be required for the list to be fully exhausted. And let me explain this a bit more. So right now, we don't really have all the TTK tests running against vNext. We don't have our standard set of performance tests running against vNext as well. So, and we also need to improve the unit and integration test. Why it's important is because we need to make sure that all these tests are passing successfully to guarantee that there is no regression encounter in vNext. And what would happen is if some of the tests are not successfully passing, it means that we will have defects that need to be fixed. And this will be added to the scope of work required to declare vNext as a release candidate. So that's why the scope is not fully finalized at present. We need to make sure that, as I mentioned, the testing effort is completed. Second, sort of area of work that we've done during this PI is methodology enhancement. So we really work on enhancing the team collaboration and efficiency. I would say by trying to be clear about the direction of travel of this work stream, which is entirely to be in the position where we can declare vNext as a release candidate, and focusing the effort of the contributors towards the task that must be completed to declare vNext as a release candidate. Obviously, it's an open source community, so everyone is welcome to work on what they feel like is meeting the most their business priority. However, obviously, not focusing on the tasks that are required to declare vNext as a release candidate will have an impact on a potential release date. What we've done as well is we reschedule agile ceremonies. So these were scheduled at some point and then they were stopped to make sure that we increase the collaboration within the team. We started to reschedule stand-ups. So there are 3 stand-ups a week. We reschedule sprint planning. We reschedule a sprint review as well. And the Zen Hub dashboard is now completely updated and prioritized as well, with obviously the tasks that are required to declare vNext as a release candidate being at the top of the backlog. We've also completed some critical tasks over this PI. So we address some defect fixing that were discovered through the PI, or actually were also identified through sprint review. I think Pedro presented yesterday the Tiger Beetle integration. This has been completed during this PI as well, and the performance improvement that both Pedro and Jason work on. We've also started to work on some document enhancement. We need to be in the position where the definition documents related to vNext are a bit more detailed so that we can declare vNext as a release candidate. Again, having detailed definition document is part of our release process. So we started to do that, and particularly working on the design diagrams. And finally, so module loop specification compliance, this is also related to this point, making sure that the admin APIs of vNext are documented, leveraging the same template as we have for vNow. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are basically, as I mentioned, now we have a prioritized backlog. So there are a few items that actually are on at the top of the backlog because they are high priority. So first one is we need to make sure that vNow and vNext are functionally aligned, because as James mentioned earlier, the business scope or the feature set of vNow and vNext must be identical. So for this, we still have a functional gap that needs to be filled in. So we need to make sure that we support 2 use cases that are currently implemented in vNow, so PISP payment initiation and request to pay as well. The second thing is so we are still actually developing new feature on vNow. So we need to make sure that these new features are also compatible with vNext. To be fair, this has been sort of a working principle established that any new feature developed on vNow should be compatible with vNext. But the only way we can verify this is by integrating this new functionality developed in vNow on vNext, and also run the regression test. So as by means of example, any new functionality developed for inter-scheme to support an inter-scheme deployment will be done on vNow, and therefore we need to be integrating in vNext as well. Again, I think Michael mentioned yesterday that he believes the number of functionality should be quite limited, but anyhow, any new features, again, we need to be migrated. Second thing is change the core ledger. So as you've seen yesterday through Pedro's and Jason's presentation, we've done a lot on Tiger Beetle integration, but we need to complete this task and we need to complete the testing. I think they mentioned yesterday that they're fine-tuning some of the tests and performance improvement. So this needs to be completed. And we will need to conduct a DA review of Tiger Beetle integration as part of our standard processes. Because when any new key or core features are being implemented, on the Modulo platform, it needs to get sign off from the TA. 3, we need to increase adherence to Modulo engineering principles. So I've already mentioned that we need to enhance our testing by integrating regression tests. So all the tests run by the TTK need to be integrated on vNext. They need to be run. Same for the performance test so that we can identify and fix critical defects. The second thing is actually more adherence to the CI pipeline. So we started to work on this during this PI. It's not fully complete yet, so that's why this is still top of the backlog. And the last point, I already mentioned it, so we need to improve documentation for vNext and document admin and settlement API. The last point is we also need to make sure that the component vNext rely on are the ones that have been approved by the Modulo Foundation. So that means we need to deploy IAM solution and also implement two-factor authentication, because right now the dependent component is not IAM, it's a different component. So these are really the key area where we're planning to focus on in the next PI. Can you move to the next slide, please, James? Thank you. So beyond, as I mentioned, the focus on the task of the backlogs, there are also a few things that we need to do. One is we need to estimate, now that we understand the scope of the work required to declare vNext as a release candidate, we sort of need to estimate how long would it take to complete this task. So sort of t-shirt sizing each task so that we can have a better understanding on a potential delivery date for vNext. So this is work that we will prioritize at the beginning of this PI. The second thing is backlog completion. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we have identified area of high focus. So we will work on completing this task. And the third one, I mentioned it as well, it's around Tiger Beetle integration. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we really need more resource on this work stream. We are clear on what we want to do and what are the tasks that are high priority. Unfortunately, often we struggle to resource this task. So if you want to join the work stream, please really feel free to do so. So we have a Modulo Slack where we have all our communication, and you will see minutes of the sprint planning and sprint review. I put the link of the Zen board as well. So as I mentioned, the board is prioritized and it's all clean up. And for each sprint, we also prioritize what are the items in the backlog for a specific sprint. We have regular meetings as well. So we have 3 times a week a stand-up, which lasts 15 minutes, and the idea is to discuss potential ball blocker. Someone will come to the stand-up if they have a problem or a challenge that they want to discuss, or sometime I will ask someone to join to provide an update on the progress of the tasks that they are assigned to. We have sprint planning every other Tuesday at 10 a.m. UTC, and we have sprint review every other Wednesday at 10 a.m. UTC as well. Really, if you want to contribute, please feel free to join this work stream. Please feel free to contact James or me as well. and we can guide you towards like a task and so on. There are really plenty of tasks to complete. So we are not lacking work on this work stream.
To follow up on what Julie said about joining the work stream, most of the code is TypeScript, but again, willing learners, please feel free. We have tasks open across the whole stack, back end, front end, testing, QA. So please don't hesitate if you have some spare cycles you'd like to contribute to the future direction, please come and join us.
And I forgot to mention as well, so if you want to see what type of tasks are within the list of tasks that need to be completed to declare vNext as a release candidate, the list has been published on the module, looks like, and yes, on the Zen App board is actually a reflection of the spreadsheet as well.